Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today to dive into the electrifying world of Bitcoin, the digital gold that's been making headlines and rewriting financial history. As of today, May 10, 2025, Bitcoin is sitting pretty at $103,000, a price that's got traders, investors, and even casual observers buzzing with excitement. But what's driving this surge? What's pushing Bitcoin to these dizzying heights, and what could pull it back down? Grab a coffee, settle in, and let's unpack the latest Bitcoin news, from macroeconomic shifts to institutional power plays, technical trends, and the chatter lighting up platforms like X and NewsBTC. This is the story of Bitcoin right now, where it's been, where it's going, and why it matters. The big picture, Bitcoin at $103,000. Let's start with the headline. Bitcoin is trading at $103,000, up from $97,500 just days ago, a tidy 6% gain that's got the crypto community buzzing. If you've been following the markets, you know this isn't just a random spike. Bitcoin's been on a tear since late 2024, fueled by a perfect storm of economic, political, and technological factors. NewsBTC, one of the go-to sources for crypto insights, has been tracking this rally closely, noting that Bitcoin's market cap is now pushing $2 trillion, with a dominance level of 58.3% over other cryptocurrencies. That's a 4-year high, signaling that Bitcoin is the undisputed king of the crypto jungle right now. But why $103,000? Why now? To answer that, we need to zoom out and look at the forces shaping this moment. From Federal Reserve policies to institutional heavyweights like BlackRock, from whale accumulations to geopolitical shifts, Bitcoin's price is a reflection of a world in transition. Let's break it down, piece by piece, and see what's driving this rocket ship, and what could send it into a spin. Macroeconomic winds, the Fed and beyond. First up, let's talk about the macroeconomic backdrop, because Bitcoin doesn't exist in a vacuum. The Federal Reserve's recent FOMC meeting on May 7 to 8, 2025, was a game-changer. Leading up to it, markets were pricing in a 96% chance of a 25 basis point rate cut, and the Fed delivered, signaling a dovish stance that's kept liquidity flowing. Lower interest rates weaken the US dollar, making risk assets like Bitcoin more attractive. NewsBTC reported that this dovish tilt has been a tailwind for Bitcoin, with analysts predicting a push toward $110,000 if the Fed keeps the pedal to the metal. But it's not just about rate cuts. The broader economic picture is complex. Inflation is still a concern, with CPI and PPI data due next week expected to show persistent price pressures. Bitcoin thrives in this environment as a hedge against fiat devaluation. Think about it, with global money supply, M2, soaring, as noted in posts on X, and governments printing cash to cover deficits, Bitcoin's fixed supply of 21 million coins looks like a lifeboat in a sea of inflation. NewsBTC's analysts have been hammering this point, arguing that Bitcoin scarcity is driving its appeal among investors who see traditional currencies losing value. On the flip side, there's a risk. If next week's inflation data comes in hotter than expected, the Fed could signal fewer rate cuts in 2026, strengthening the dollar and putting pressure on risk assets. This happened before. Back in early May, strong U.S. jobs data sparked a 10% BTC dip to $92,500. So, while the macro environment is broadly bullish, it's a tightrope walk. Keep an eye on those CPI numbers and Fed speakers like John Williams, who's been dropping hints about policy direction. Institutional power plays, ETFs and corporate treasuries. Now, let's talk about the big money. Institutional adoption is arguably the biggest driver of Bitcoin's 2025 rally, and the numbers are staggering. US spot Bitcoin ETFs have racked up $2.68 billion in inflows recently, with $674.9 million last week alone, according to Decrypt. BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust, IBIT, is leading the pack, scooping up over 10,000 BTC in a single week, as noted by Simply Bitcoin TV on X. These ETFs are like a vacuum cleaner for Bitcoin supply, locking up coins and driving scarcity. But it's not just ETFs. Corporate treasuries are jumping in with both feet. MicroStrategy, the poster child for corporate Bitcoin adoption, just added 15,000 BTC to its stack, bringing its total to 554,000 coins, worth over $57 billion at current prices. Strategy and 21 are also in a race to hoard BTC, with 21 announcing a $3 billion buy that sent shockwaves through the market. NewsBTC highlighted this trend, noting that public companies are now holding 5% of Bitcoin's circulating supply, a number that's growing by the day. Sovereign wealth funds and even governments are circling. Bhutan and Liechtenstein now accept BTC payments, and New Hampshire just signed a Bitcoin reserve bill into law, as shared by @DavyMan3. On X. These moves signal a seismic shift. Bitcoin is no longer a fringe asset, it's becoming a strategic reserve for nations and corporations alike. This institutional FOMO is a massive bullish catalyst, but it's not without risks. If markets turn bearish or regulatory hurdles emerge, these big players could pause their buying, cooling the rally. Technical trends, bulls versus bears. Let's get technical for a moment, because the charts are telling a compelling story. Bitcoin's price action is screaming bullish, with key indicators flashing green. NewsBTC's daily technical analysis, led by traders like Tony, the Bull, Spilatro, points to Bitcoin trading above its 50-day and 200-day moving averages, with a bullish MACD crossover signaling sustained momentum. The Relative Strength Index, RSI, is at 70.46, just shy of overbought territory, suggesting room for more upside before a potential pullback. Right now, Bitcoin's testing resistance at $103,460, a level NewsBTC calls pivotal. A clean break here could open the door to $110,000 or even $120,000, especially if ETF inflows and whale buying keep the pressure on. On-chain data backs this up. 84% of Bitcoin holders are in profit, and whale wallets are accumulating, with $300 million in Satoshi Era BTC moved recently, as reported by Decrypt. This isn't just retail hype, the big players are stacking sats like there's no tomorrow. But here's the flip side, the charts also warn of potential turbulence. The crypto-specific RSI, CRSI, is at 98 plus, a level that's historically preceded consolidation or corrections. If Bitcoin fails to hold $103,000, we could see a retest of support at $97,000 or even $95,000, levels NewsBTC flagged as key zones to watch. Profit taking is a real risk, especially with 84% of holders sitting on gains. Plus, high leverage in derivatives markets, open interest is soaring, could trigger liquidations if sentiment sours, as seen with $500 million wiped out in a recent dip. Sentiment on X, greed, FOMO, and caution. Speaking of sentiment, let's take a pulse check on X, where the crypto community lives and breathes. The vibe is overwhelmingly bullish, with the fear and greed index at 73, firmly in greed territory. Posts like @BTC_for_freedom are typical. The Bitcoin hash rate is skyrocketing, M2 money supply is soaring, ETFs are buying 5k BTC per day. Everything is set for the bull run. Others, like @Languriaseth, are dreaming big, tying Bitcoin's rise to policy wins like Senator Cynthia Lummis' bill for a 1 million BTC US reserve, backed by President Trump. But not everyone's sipping the Kool-Aid. Some X-users, like @Coin.news, are sounding alarms about a negative Coinbase premium, a sign of waning investor confidence that could foreshadow a dip. Others warn of overbought conditions, with one trader noting, CRSI at 98 plus means we're due for a breather. This mix of greed and caution reflects Bitcoin's high-stakes moment. Everyone's watching, but no one's quite sure if we're headed for $120,000 or a pullback to $90,000. NewsBTC's take, the voice of crypto. NewsBTC has been a guiding light in this frenzy, offering a blend of hard news, technical analysis, and expert commentary. Founded in 2013, they've built a reputation for cutting through the noise with rigorous fact-checking and a focus on what matters: price drivers, market trends, and technological shifts. Their recent coverage emphasizes Bitcoin's decoupling from tech stocks, a trend Bloomberg and Simply Bitcoin TV also noted on X. This decoupling is huge. It means Bitcoin's maturing as an asset class, less tied to Nasdaq's ups and downs and more driven by its own fundamentals. NewsBTC's analysts are also diving into Bitcoin's blockchain dynamics. The hash rate is at all-time highs, signaling robust miner confidence, while exchange balances have hit a 5-year low, with 90,000 BTC withdrawn last month. This supply squeeze, fewer coins on exchanges, more in cold storage, is a classic bullish setup. But NewsBTC isn't blind to the risks. They warn that regulatory shifts, like SEC scrutiny of crypto exchanges, or geopolitical shocks, like tariff disputes, could derail the rally. Their balanced approach, bullish but grounded, makes them a must-read for anyone navigating this market. Geopolitical and policy shifts, a new era? Let's zoom out to the geopolitical stage, because Bitcoin's rise isn't just about markets, it's about power and policy. The US is at a crypto crossroads. President Trump's pro-crypto stance, including his support for a 1 million BTC strategic reserve, has ignited optimism. NewsBTC reports that Trump's administration is pushing for lighter regulations, with figures like Paul Atkins tipped for SEC roles. This could unleash a wave of institutional capital, especially if spot XRP ETFs gain traction, as hinted by Mark Hampton on NewsBTC. Globally, the picture is mixed. Bhutan and Liechtenstein's BTC payment adoption is a win, but Europe's regulatory tightening and China's crypto crackdowns are headwinds. Then there's the trade angle. Trump's tariff plans, while softened by recent U.K. and US-China talks, could still spook markets if they escalate. Decrypt noted skepticism about the U.K. hack's impact, and X posts echo concerns about cronyism in Trump's trade deals. For Bitcoin, this is a double-edged sword. Tariffs could fuel inflation, boosting BTC as a hedge, but they could also tank risk appetite, dragging prices down. The road ahead: what's next for Bitcoin? So, where does Bitcoin go from here? Let's map out the next 6 days, from May 11th to May 16th, because the short term is packed with catalysts. First, inflation data, CPI and PPI, will drop midweek, and it's a make-or-break moment. If inflation cools, expect rate cut hopes to lift BTC toward $110,000. If it's hot, a stronger dollar could push prices back to $97,000. NewsBTC's analysts are leaning bullish but urge caution, noting that $103,460 is the line in the sand. Retail sales and consumer sentiment data, also due midweek, will shape the Fed's next moves. Weak numbers could reinforce dovish bets, while strong data might cool the rally. Fed speakers, including John Williams, will be parsed for clues, and X will light up with real-time reactions. ETF inflows are another wild card. Another $500 million week could cement $110,000, but a slowdown might trigger profit-taking. Longer term, the outlook is bright but not without bumps. NewsBTC sees Bitcoin hitting $120,000 by Q3 2025 if institutional adoption and policy tailwinds persist. But risks loom: a hawkish Fed pivot, regulatory crackdowns, or a geopolitical shock could spark a 20% correction. On X, the bulls are dreaming of generational wealth, but the bears are whispering about overbought signals. The truth, as always, lies in the middle. Why Bitcoin matters. Before we wrap up, let's step back and reflect on why this matters. Bitcoin isn't just a price ticker, it's a movement. Born in 2009 from Satoshi Nakamoto's vision, it's a rebellion against centralized control, a bet on decentralization, and a hedge against a creaking financial system. NewsBTC's mission, empowering readers with transparent, accurate info, captures this ethos. Whether you're a trader, a hodler, or just curious, Bitcoin's story is about sovereignty, innovation, and the future of money. Right now, at $103,000, Bitcoin is at a crossroads. It's a battleground of greed and fear, bulls and bears, institutions and regulators. The next 6 days will be a microcosm of that struggle, with inflation data, Fed signals, and market sentiment shaping the path. Will we see $110,000 or a dip to $95,000? No one knows for sure, but one thing's clear, Bitcoin's not going anywhere. Closing thoughts. So, there you have it, the pulse of Bitcoin in May 2025. From the Fed's dovish dance to BlackRock's ETF binge, from whale stacks to X's FOMO, this is a market alive with possibility and peril. NewsBTC, Decrypt, and the X community are your guides, offering clarity in a chaotic world. Keep your eyes on the charts, your ears on the news, and your wits about you. Bitcoin's at $103,000 today, but tomorrow? That's anyone's guess. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Let's keep the conversation going. Drop your thoughts on X, check out NewsBTC for the latest, and stay curious. The Bitcoin revolution is just getting started, and you're right in the middle of it. Until next time, stay sharp and HODL on.